ask you about global growth now, and the risks that you've outlined as part of the IMF's global growth forecast. The rebalancing in China is one of the key risks. On the basis of what you're hearing from China, on the basis of the data that we now have, do you believe that we could see a further downside, revision as far as the growth forecast for China is concerned? 6.3% in 2016, 6% in 2017 is the IMF's growth outlook for China. What is the indication that you're getting from China at this point in time? Do you expect more pain?
If we are doing anything about this forecast, it's probably going to slightly upgrade them a little bit, because major announcements have been made during the recent meetings that took place in Beijing in the last 10 days, some of which indicating clearly fiscal support in order to sustain growth going forward, significant reforms and restructurings. So that has to be taken into account in our forecast, because clearly it was not in the cards, was not on the table. And if anything, it might be an upward revision. I'm not, the work is being done as we speak, and we need to, really identify what will move the needle from the various announcements that have been made by Premier Li.
But what do you believe have been the most significant changes that the Chinese government has undertaken, which would lead you to then revise upwards the growth forecast and the growth outlook for China?
Well, clearly some fiscal stimulus has been announced, and that has a bearing on growth.
Okay. Let me ask you about one of the other challenges that we could potentially be faced with, and that is the currency volatility. In India, the rupee has weakened about 6% against the dollar, but it's remained largely flat in 2015 on a trade-weighted basis. How significant a risk is currency volatility, the possibility of adjustments or devaluation of currency, especially the Chinese currency?
The transition is underway in China, both from a growth model point of view, but also from a monetary policy point of view, from a currency point of view as well. And there is a move towards a more market-driven principle. There is a reference that is now made clearly to a basket of currencies rather than a strict or almost strict peg to the dollar. And this is going to have an impact and will lead to inevitable either appreciation or depreciation, depending on how the situation evolves over time. But that is something that is desirable and that is to be expected at a reasonable and sensible pace.
Okay, but you don't believe that we're going to be faced with any sort of currency shock, so at least that is not your expectation or your assessment at this point in time?
Currency will vary and there will be volatility. There's no question about that. But I don't think that it is going to be driven by the Chinese monetary and currency policy going forward.
Okay, we've got a couple of minutes left, so let me switch and talk to you about another issue that you've been passionately championing at the IMF since you took over, and that is the case for gender equality, income equality. In the context of India and the work that's being done, what do you believe ought to be the move as far as policy prescription is concerned, whether it's on the part of the government or it's on the part of corporations? What is it that you would like to see to ensure better representation of women in the workforce, drive down attrition of women, especially when it comes to the mid-level? What is it that you would like to see?
I would first observe that the participation of Indian women in the Indian workforce is low relative to average in equivalent countries. So women are underrepresented. They are often underpaid relative to others, and they constitute a large number of the unreported and unofficial labor. So there is a great discrepancy that needs to be addressed. And policies abound that can be used, whether it's better childcare centres, whether it is the tax rules in place, whether it is the maternity leaves available. We had a very good session during the conference at which representatives of other countries, including the likes of Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, have exposed what the policies are that actually are helping and pushing women to join the workplace if they so wish. I think there is a cultural bias as well, which does not really operate in favor of women in Indian society, and I hope that this is addressed by men and women alike,
Well,
and taken up at the highest level in government
We
as
do
well.
hope that that is the case. I was having a conversation with Melinda Gates yesterday, and she said that if she had the choice of a superpower, she would ask for more time. If you had the choice of a superpower, what would you ask for?
I think it's the ultimate luxury to have more time. That is true. That is true, and something that we cannot really change. So it's the ultimate dream.
You know, I remember reading an interview of yours where you said that your term at the IMF has been somewhat like a roller coaster. As you now start your second term at the IMF, what would the priorities be for you? You know, you've often said that you want the organization to be much more agile. What would be the priorities as far as you're concerned for the IMF in your second term?
I've used AIM, which includes agile, integrated and member-focused. Agile, I think, speaks for itself. It says the ability of the institution to even better respond to the change of economic situations. Integrated means that we have to all work together as collectively as we can. We have to help coordinate when others are prepared to coordinate. We have to work with other institutions as well. And member focus means that I want to listen to the voices of India, to the voices of Indonesia, to the voices of the Maldives and Vanuatu and any places around. Because each country has its specific sets of economic problems, cultural issues, and social attitudes, which all have to be taken into account in order to help with solutions.
So let me end by asking you, if you could prioritize the risks at this point in time that the global economy is faced with, what would those key risks be? And also, how significant is
the ultimate long-term risk that we should all face critically is climate change.
Climate change. What about debt? Because that seems to be, the debt overhang seems to be holding back growth, which is forcing the IMF and others to then, you know, downgrade your own growth forecast. So
I think it's very good that countries like India, for instance, are actually including bankruptcy law, mediation systems and out-of-court settlement mechanism in order to address the corporate debt. Sovereign debt is an issue that needs to be addressed by governments, and I think it's a combination of all tools together in order to generate growth that will be sustainable growth and climate-friendly growth that will actually respond properly to the issue of debt.
My final question, the finance minister, while introducing or speaking at the inaugural here at the Advancing Asia, said that he believes, or he was reasonably confident, that both in your personal and professional capacity, you're a good friend of India. What has the India experience, especially over the last 4 years, been for you, and the 4 days that you've spent here in India been for you?
Well, my Indian experience goes way back before the last 4 years, you know.
Talking about the term, yeah.
What I've always enjoyed in this country is the vibrance, the enthusiasm, the creativity, the colors, the warmth, the hospitality, the generosity, and the wit.
And the Indian wardrobe that you've acquired as well.
Absolutely. Well, I think it epitomizes that beautifully, and, you know, here you are, creativity, colors.
Well, thank you very much, Christine Lagarde, for speaking to us here on CNBC TV 18. We appreciate your time, and we wish you all the very best. Thank you very much for joining us. With that, it is a wrap on the CNBC TV 18 special. From all of us here, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.